Welcome to Christian Overcomers, and thank you for joining us for this Bible study. Genesis chapter 14, Abraham's great military feat. You know, I posted on Facebook the other day this statement. Is the modern church cherry-picking scriptures to demasculinize Christianity? Abraham is often looked to as the model Christian because of his strong faith. But few are aware of Abraham's great military victories. He defeated an alliance of 4 kings and their armies with just 318 men. All this was done to save his nephew Lot. Now that is the kind of Christian masculinity we should be teaching our youth, and maybe they'd find the Bible as inspiring as it is. And I see that so often today. We never hear of all these great masculine, heroic things that these Bible characters, I don't like to call them characters because they're real, but these heroes of the Bible, we don't ever hear about what they performed. The church now just cherry picks love everybody, be gentle, be kind, be sweet. Hey, and those are all good things. But men are designed to fight against evil. Little boys are programmed that way. When they grow up, they got the good guys fighting the bad guys. And they want to save everybody from the bad guys. But we don't do that in church. They cherry pick the scriptures and they'll misapply scriptures like just love your enemies. And then we produce this effeminate Christianity that has no place for real men. It's uninspiring. It's limp-wristed. It's boring. But if we teach them stories like this, or historical events like this, or if we teach them about the real men, the heroes of the Bible, our youth and our men will want to follow. Because this book is full of masculinity, which is so demonized today. You know, if you raise your voice against evildoers, if you stand up for what's right, now you're saying, now they say, that's you're being too violent. The biblical heroes, they stood up for what was right. Okay, they were bold, they were courageous, and yes, they were loving and they were compassionate. But they weren't a bunch of limp-wristed wimps. The church today, you know, oftentimes you think of a man that goes to church. People look at him like, oh, that's kind of a nerdy guy there. He's got his Bible. I guess he's not like one of us tough guys, that do all these other things because, church, from what I know, is real effeminate. Hey, my friend, you don't know the Bible very well. You don't know what a true man of God looks like very well if you think that being a Christian is to be effeminate and weak, because it's not. It's to be bold, to be strong. We got the stories of Davids who killed the giant, killed the lion, killed the bear. You got the Joshuas, you got the Samsons, you name it. All the way up into our Lord Jesus Christ, who withstood the insults of the enemy and suffered on that cross as the toughest, the roughest warrior that has ever lived upon this earth. But yet, he was compassionate. He was loving. So there's a mixture. But our churches today just give us this slippery, sweet, just love everybody. And hey, if the men want to be men, we don't want that. We don't want that. That's too masculine. That's toxic masculinity is what is a term we often hear today. Anyways, let's get into the scriptures. Genesis chapter 14, verse 1, and it came to pass in the days of Amphrael, king of Shinar, Arioch, king of Eleazar, Chedorlaomer, king of Elam, and Tidal, the king of nations. Now what we're going to see here in this chapter is something very interesting. Not only are we going to see this is actually going to be the account of the first war in the Bible between nations. Okay? Not only are we going to see the first war between different nations, different conglomerates of nations, but we're also going to see, like I said, we're going to see Abraham caught in the middle of this because of his nephew Lot. And there are a lot of lessons to be learned from this, and we'll get into those in a second. So we got these different kings here. This Amphrael means sayer of darkness. Arioch means lion-like. Eleazar means God is chastener or a punisher. Chedorlaomer, if that's how you pronounce it, handful of sheaves, and Tidal means the great sun. But anyways, these are pagan nations. These are pagan worshipers, okay? These are a bunch of different worldly kingdoms banded together for war. We don't see that today, do we? Yes, we do. Genesis 14, verse 2, these made war with Bera, king of Sodom, and Bersha, king of Gomorrah. And then we have this Shinab, king of Admah, and Shember, I believe that's how you say it, king of Zeboam, and the king of Bela, which is Zoar. Okay, so this Bera, if we break this down, his name means son of evil. Bersha means son of iniquity. Shinab means father's tooth. He was a Canaanite king. Shemeber means soaring on high. Anyways, these were all basically we basically got a war going on between some Western kings and some Eastern kings. I guess you could say, I guess we'll leave it at that. It was the West versus the East here, basically. These kings from Babylonia coming to fight these kings of the land of Canaan, which were primarily Canaanites. Okay, so two pagan confederacies fighting each other. All these were joined together in the Vale of Siddim, which is the Salt Sea. 12 years they served Chedorlaomer. In the 13th year, they rebelled. Now, the number 13 is an interesting number in the Bible. 13 is the number of rebellion. All right. So in this 13th year, these other kings said, "Hey, we're not going to serve you anymore." Whatever they ended up doing, they didn't pay them tribute, or something like that. And we're going to see the result of it. And in the 14th year came Chedorlaomer and the kings that were with him. And now they're mad because these other guys rebelled against them. So now they've got to go, they're going to go punish them for disobeying. And the kings that were with him and smote the Raphaims in Ashtaroth Carnium, and the Zunims in Ham, and the Emans in Sheva Kiriathaim. So this is interesting. These Raphaims, you're going to find out from other scriptures and even the meaning of their name, which means the dead. And these Emans, these were races of giants. These were the offspring or descendants, if you would, of the Genesis chapter 6 influx of the fallen angels. So many of you understand that story, the fallen angels in Genesis chapter 6. They came down, they saw the daughters of Adam, and they thought they were beautiful, and they wanted to take for themselves wives. And then they had children with, so what we had there is we had angels that had, fallen angels that had children with human women. And the result of that was these grotesque giants. You know, later on you find out that there was, we had Goliath and so forth. But these were races of giants that these kings evidently came in and defeated. So interesting that they are mentioned here. And so it must have been a powerful confederacy of kings coming from the region of Babylon, from the east to the west, the land of Canaan, to try to keep them in subjection. And the Horites, these means the cave dwellers, they might have been giants as well. In their Mount Seir unto, what is that word there? I should put my glasses on. El Paran, which is by the wilderness. Okay. And they returned and came to En Mishpat, which is by Kadesh, and smote all the country of the Amalekites, and also the Amorites that dwelt in Hazan Tamar. Okay? Just conquering as they go. And there went out the king of Sodom and the king of Gomorrah. I think everybody knows the king of Sodom and Gomorrah. Everybody's heard of the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah. Very ungodly cities. Very wicked and perverse. But here, we're going to see something kind of interesting here. And the king of Admah and the king of Zeboim and the king of Bela, the same as Zoar, and they joined battle with them in the vale of Siddim. So these Sodomites, these Gomorrites, and these people from Admah, all these different cities, I believe there's about 5 of them or such that were in the same general area. They are going out to fight these kings that are trying to make them pay tribute. All right? With Chedorlaomer, the king of Elam, and with Tidal, king of the nations, and Amphrael, the king of Shinar, and Arioch, king of Elasar, now here's the key here to sum this up. 4 kings with 5. Okay, these were all pagan kings fighting each other. These Canaanites that included the Sodomites and the Gomorrahites, they wanted to be free from these eastern kings. And these eastern kings wanted to control these western nations here, these western kingdoms. So they go to battle, 4 against 5. And the vale of Siddim was full of slime pits. And the kings of Sodom and Gomorrah fled, and there fell. And they that remained fled to the mountain. In other words, the Sodomites lost. They fell in these slime pits and were defeated. And they took all the goods of Sodom and Gomorrah and their victuals and went their way. So these kings that came in, they spoiled all of Sodom and Gomorrah, took all of their goods, all of their wealth, and left. And, now check this out, and they took Lot, Abraham's brother's son, his nephew, who dwelt in Sodom, his goods, and departed. So, here we have an interesting example here, and I'm going to build on this type in a little bit. Lot got caught up in the world. And he got caught between 2 kingdoms fighting each other. And because he was caught up into the world, he got captured. Now think about this in the spiritual sense. If you lust after the ways of the world, you're more than likely, if you continually lust after the ways of the world and you want to not live in God's kingdom, but you want to live in the worldly kingdom and then maybe dabble a little bit in God's kingdom, you're in danger of being taken captive by Satan and his minions in the spiritual war that we are fighting today. Now, Lot was physically taken into captivity, but many people today are taken into captivity spiritually by the lies and the deception and the lusts of this world. And I can't help but think of when Jesus said, learn the truth, and the truth shall set you free. When he said that to some of the leaders of the Jews, and they said, well, we be Abraham's children. We're not in bondage to anybody. But yet Jesus was talking about a different kind of bondage, a different kind of slavery that they were under and they didn't know it. All right? And there came one that had escaped and told Abraham the Hebrew, for he dwelt in the plain of Mamre the Amorite, brother of Eshcol, the brother of Aner, and these, now check this out, and these were confederate with Abraham. So Abraham had sort of an alliance here with what appears to be other pagan peoples. There must have been some kind of an agreement here. Now, as we live in the world today, we're not supposed to make leagues. We're not supposed to marry, pagan women and so forth, just like the Israelites weren't to marry the Canaanites. But as we're in this world, sometimes there are different alliances to a certain degree that are made. And it appears as though Abraham did have some of these. When you're in the world, but we're going to find out, Abraham, though he might have had some of these alliances, he was not controlled by these alliances. Abraham served God and no other kingdom. We're going to see that displayed here at the end of this chapter in a beautiful way. No one owned Abraham. No one controlled Abraham except for Almighty God. Abraham was loyal first and foremost to the kingdom of God, and he would allow nothing to come in between that. And when Abraham heard that his brother was taken captive, he armed his trained servants born in his house, 318, and pursued them unto Dan. It appears as though he didn't wait at all. This was instantaneous. He heard they had Lot, and he got his trained men, 318 of them, and went out to go save Lot. Now think about the love and the loyalty of Abraham. How many of you would do that? I mean, I would be tempted to think, well, Lot made his own bed. Let him sleep in it. The darn fool. Why did he want to live in Sodom anyways? What did he expect? That's probably what I'd want to say. But Abraham's evidently a lot better man than I am, because I think that would be the first thing that would cross my mind. Sucks to be you. Okay? But Abraham was loyal. And he was willing to risk his life as well as the life of all of his men. And they were loyal to Abraham. They didn't complain about it. We've got no record. They just went straightway to go rescue and save Lot. Now think about this, my friends. Lot was a type of a worldly sinner. He loved the world. How many of you today would be willing to risk your life? Be willing to take the slings and arrows of the enemy to try to save someone else? Maybe a family member, a loved one, a friend, a neighbor that is lost in this world. That's the type. Abraham went after Lot because he was taken captive. How many people today are taken captive by the lies of Satan and the kingdom of darkness? Would you leave everything immediately if the opportunity arose to do like what Abraham did and go save somebody? We've got to have that mentality. We've got to be willing. We've got to have that much love. See, this is the kind of love that if we taught our young boys this would inspire them. This role model, this love and loyalty of Abraham, that he loved Lot so much, he was willing to put down everything, risk everything to go and save him. That's called being a man. That's biblical masculinity. And that's the kind of masculinity that we need to ingrain in our young men. And it's a good thing, not a bad thing. It's not toxic. It's wonderful. It is a great quality, and so forth. All right, so here he goes. And he divided himself against them, he and his servants, by night, and smote them and pursued them unto Hobab, which is on the left hand of Damascus. So Abraham used a military strategy here. He was no dummy. I mean, as far as we know, he wasn't, a trained military general, but he did use tactics here. One main tactic was the element of surprise. He attacked at night. And I have no doubt, this could be a lesson for Christians as well. When trying to save the lost, we should use wisdom. We should fight with intelligence. We don't want to get caught by the enemy. We don't want Satan to trap us and make fool of us. Strategize. Be smart. Be wise. Be wise as serpents, as Jesus said in the New Testament. Okay? Don't be dumb. Don't just be foolish and do dumb things and lose your credibility or lose your opportunity. Be tactical, like Abraham. He surprised the enemy and smote them. Okay, and he divided his army. He divided his men against them. So he evidently knew what he was doing, and obviously God blessed him in this endeavor. So he smote them, and he brought back all the goods, and also brought again his brother Lot and his goods, and the women also, and the people. So these armies, these kings that led these raids against the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah and the surrounding area and defeated all these other areas, Abraham took 318 men, went in there on a special operation against them. We think of this as special forces. This is what Abraham did, really. This is amazing. And he went in there with that small group of men and defeated these great kings. Man, that's awesome. That gives me a lot more respect for Abraham. He wasn't just some guy wandering around the desert. Okay, he did do that, obviously. But this account here is just, I think it's amazing. I wish we were taught this stuff. Okay, in church, but no, that's too manly for church these days, I guess, because you might offend somebody. You might get somebody that doesn't want to hear that, and they won't, put the money in the hat or whatever. So he rescued Lot. Not only did he rescue Lot, he rescued the women and the people and all the goods. And verse 17, and the king of Sodom went out to meet him after his return. Here we got this pagan king here, king of Sodom. Went out to meet him after his return from the slaughter of Chedorlaomer, and the kings that were with him at the valley of Shiva, which is the king's dale. And Melchizedek, king of Salem, brought forth bread and wine, and he was the priest of the Most High God. Now, Melchizedek means king of righteousness. This man was both a king and a priest of the Most High God. Who was he? In the book of Hebrews, it brings a great mystery into this. It says that he was without descent. He had neither father nor mother. And so there's a lot of speculation that this might have been Jesus Christ himself before he was, 1,000 years before or so, before he came in the flesh. I don't know. It's a mystery. But this Melchizedek, this is actually a priesthood that superseded the Levitical priesthood. In other words, it was of greater importance. Now, I'm not going to go into all that. We've got a study on it. If you want to learn more about this Melchizedek, we did a study on it in the book of Hebrews. I can't remember what chapter it was in, but if you look in our archives on our website at christianovercomers.com, click on the book Hebrews, and you'll find one or two studies titled having the name Melchizedek in the titles. All right, Melchizedek, king of Salem, brought forth bread and wine. Remember Holy Communion? Those are the ingredients, bread and wine. And he was the priest of the Most High God. And he blessed him and said, now Jesus is actually a priest not after the order of Aaron. Not after the Levitical priesthood, which would come later than Abraham. But he was a priest after the order of Melchizedek. This is a different priesthood. This was before the Israelites even existed. Because Abraham was the father of Isaac, who was the father of Jacob, who was the father of the 12 tribes of Israel, including the tribe of Levi, which was the priesthood. This is way before the Levitical priesthood. And the king of Sodom said unto Abraham, give me the persons and take the goods to thyself. So the king of Sodom is saying, hey, I just want my people back. You can keep all the goods. After all, Abraham kind of deserved them, right? After going in and defeating those kings and taking that stuff back. But let's see what Abraham says. And Abraham said to the king of Sodom, I have lifted up mine hand unto the Lord, the Most High God, the possessor of heaven and earth. In other words, he took an oath to God, that I will not take from a thread even to a shoe latchet, and that I will not take anything that is thine, lest thou shouldest say, I have made Abraham rich. Now, he didn't want the pagans to get the glory for the blessings that God has given him. And, this is another example. Abraham deserved all of that stuff. But Abraham did not take any of that. I got to go back here and see something. Let me go back here. I thought I missed where... Oh, maybe not. I don't know. I can't remember. Maybe it comes in a little bit. But Abraham actually paid a tithe or a tenth of all the spoils that he had to Melchizedek. I might have missed that verse. If I did, that's what he did. Let me see here. So Abraham did not want man to get the glory. He wanted the glory to go to God. And he also was not going to let a pagan king kind of control him. Right? Abraham was independent. He was sovereign. You had all these different kings and alliances fighting each other, but then there's Abraham, separate and apart from both sides. It's kind of how America was founded in a way. The Declaration of Independence. They didn't want to be a part of the world. They wanted to have their own unique nation. They didn't want to get entangled in the foreign affairs of other nations. That's kind of Abraham's take. So it's very interesting when you see that character kind of portrayed in America's beginnings. All right. Save only that which the young men have eaten, and the portion of the men which went with me, Aner, Eshcol, and Mamre, let them take their portion. In other words, I will only take what the men had to eat on the way to pay them for this journey, okay? And that was it. That's it. That's how that chapter ended. Hey, Abraham. To sum up this chapter, Abraham was sovereign. He was independent. He was in the world, yes, and sometimes there was some agreements or alliances that he had some other people that were confederate with him. So that does happen. But he didn't get so entangled with these other kings that he became servant to them. He served the kingdom of Almighty God and no one else. Okay? But his love and devotion to his nephew Lot caused him to leave all, to risk all, to try to get him liberated from those kings. And that's a type of how we should act and react as Christians today in this spiritual war. I'm not saying we go pick up guns and go fight. This is a spiritual war. We're talking about the truth. You know, right now we've got the armies of the pagans are the LGBTQ movement, the leftist Democrat Party, the globalist neocons in the Republican Party. These are all modern day enemies of God's kingdom. The abortionists, you name it. This war is still raging, and we've got to have the courage to speak out against these things and be willing to be called a hater, a bigot, or whatever, because they're going to do it, and they're the real haters. And we're actually trying to love them, but they don't see that because they're blinded by Satan's lies, and they're enraged with hatred of all that is good. You know, there was something interesting. I saw a note of a scholar that was made an interesting point. You know, the 318 men were born and raised in Abraham's house and trained by him. Okay, they weren't trained in, and he likened this to in the spiritual sense, where a lot of people that want to be a pastor, I go get my my degree in biblical studies, and then I go on to the seminary and so forth. That's not really how you see it done in the Bible. Okay? It's not really how you see it done in the Bible. You know, most good Bible teaching ministries that I come across are very independent. They haven't been to the systems that are pushing their own agendas and their own things, but they're just trained by God Himself, trained in His Word, and not all this other nonsense that comes along with being trained outside of of the well, I'm going to leave it at that. All right. Hey, I hope you enjoyed this study. We're going to get into the next chapter here real soon, Genesis chapter 15, and we're going to keep on rolling through. God bless you. Stay in His Word every single day so that you can be a Christian overcomer.
Christian Overcomers is brought to you by the tithes and offerings of our listeners. If you would like to support our ministry, please go to ChristianOvercomers.com. God bless you, and thank you for your support.
Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord. He is trampling out the vintage where the grapes of wrath are stored. He has loosed the fateful lightning of His terrible sword. His truth is marching